Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about the all-new Nissan Xterra. Before we get into this video though, as always, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. And then if you want to see more videos just like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post content every single day. Let's get into it. So if you haven't been paying attention to Nissan over the last few years, they've changed quite a bit within their lineup in an attempt to sell more vehicles. And well, they've seen some success in certain categories and not so much in other categories. When it comes to like their full-sized vehicles, you know, it's been decent, but not as good as what they expected. And then, you know, when it comes to their cars, they've actually been doing pretty well. But the segment that they have been absolutely killing it within is the mid-sized truck segment with the new Frontier, and then the middle-sized SUV segment with the new Nissan Pathfinder. And so Nissan is taking note. They're noticing that people really like to purchase vehicles from them within those two segments. And so they're kind of looking to expand so then they can, you know, further increase sales. But what they're also doing is paying close attention to what Toyota does within their segments and seeing how many vehicles Toyota is selling within certain segments, because Nissan basically always benchmarks Toyota. Like if you look at the new Frontier, for example, Nissan took the Toyota Tacoma and they said, okay, we're going to try to beat the Tacoma on every single aspect, including price, and that's what they did with the new Frontier. And so now they're doing the exact same thing with the Toyota 4Runner. But this time, they're bringing back an iconic vehicle, the Xterra. So let's dive into the specs with this new Nissan Xterra. Just like the 4Runner that it's planning on destroying, it's going to be a body-on-frame SUV with a solid rear axle and independent front suspension. Now, when it comes to packaging, Nissan is basically going to copy what they did with the Frontier, because again, the Frontier has been so successful. So they're going to have like, you know, baseline package, and then they're going to have kind of like a middle-of-the-line package where you can make it look really cool. So think like the Frontier SV with the Midnight Edition. And then they're going to have their top of the line package, which will be the Pro 4X, just like with the Frontier, where it'll be kind of their luxury / off-road package that is supposed to compete with the 4Runner TRD off-road, just like how the Pro 4X is supposed to compete with the Tacoma TRD off-road. And I know some people might comment at this point, well, why not go for the TRD Pro? Again, Nissan is trying to undercut Toyota when it comes to pricing, and so they don't want their most expensive, nicest version of this new Xterra to be as expensive as the most, you know, hardcore version of the 4Runner. They want it to be quite a bit less. So that's why they're targeting the TRD off-road. And frankly, if you look at the specs on the TRD off-road 4Runner versus a TRD Pro, the biggest benefit to going Pro is you get those Fox shocks. But like the TRD off-road, solid rear axle still, and it has, you know, a locker, and it's got Toyota's advanced traction control system. So like it pretty much has all the stuff. It just doesn't have the name, the tires, and the shocks, which are easy aftermarket modifications, and Nissan sees that. But anyways, moving from that to the powertrain, this is where things get pretty exciting. So the base powertrain for this new Xterra is going to be the 3.8 liter V6 that is also in the Frontier, that's paired to a 9-speed automatic transmission. Now at launch, this is most likely going to be the only engine option available, but there is going to be another powertrain most likely, and I'll talk about that a little bit later in the video. But this powertrain is super competitive with the 4Runner that it plans on destroying, because, well, the 4Runner has a 5-speed, this is a 9-speed, so more gears. And then on top of that, it has more power and torque. 310 horsepower, 281 pound-feet of torque, whereas with the 4Runner, its 4-liter V6 produces 270 horsepower and then 278 pound-feet of torque. So Nissan is already beating the 4Runner when it comes to power with this Xterra. And then that leads into the styling with this Xterra. So when it comes to exterior styling, Nissan again is going to go for that kind of like rugged look that they have with the Frontier, but then in SUV format. But it might share quite a few style cues. So basically the, you know, front end with the lights and the hood and everything is going to look very similar to the Frontier. It's just that, you know, once you go to the roof line and everything, it's gonna keep going. So just literally imagine a Frontier with like a cab over the bed, and that's roughly what the Xterra will look like in terms of the exterior styling, which I think would work really well. Like again, the Frontier's a really good looking pickup truck, so I think that would do very well. Now when it comes to the interior, it'll just be a complete carryover from the Frontier. So like if you've seen, you know, my reviews on the new Frontier, everything you see there is going to basically be in this Xterra. So the gauge cluster, the infotainment system, the 360 camera system, the seats, and again, I don't think that's a bad thing, because like the Frontier Pro 4X, for example, fully loaded, has really cool looking seats. They have like the the leather that looks like carbon fiber, right? It's like the carbon fiber print leather, and then they've got the cool orange stitching, and so again, a really cool looking interior. And so they're basically setting up this new Xterra for success. And now this leads me into probably the most exciting portion of the video for me, at least, and that is talking about the other powertrain that will potentially be released with the Xterra at a slightly later date. So something that Nissan has been working on in kind of secret is the whole Warrior brand. So if you don't know, every single manufacturer is realizing that the off-road segment is only going to become more and more popular as time goes on. And really high performance off-roaders are extremely popular. Look at the Ford F-150 Raptor. Look at the Ram TRX, those are both selling amazingly well. And then again, go back to Toyota's lineup. With the TRD Pro, all it does is just make the 4Runner slightly more capable off-road by giving it nicer shocks and beefier tires. And so Nissan is basically going to take this formula and build a new brand for themselves, again, the Warrior brand, so they can have slightly more, aggressive off-road vehicles. And this is going to leak into the Xterra. So with the Xterra, it's basically going to just beef up the powertrain, give it bigger tires. Maybe it'll be a little bit wider, but again, you got to understand, Nissan doesn't have Toyota's budget, so they're not going to go too crazy with the vehicle, right? But they'll do as much as they can to make it just a little bit more aggressive. The big thing, though, will be with that powertrain. So Nissan currently has a twin-turbo 3-liter V6 they're using in the Nissan Z, and then, the Infiniti Q60 Red 400 Sport and the Q50 Red 400 Sport as well. That engine is not only reliable, but it is very easy to tune. And so what Nissan's going to do is they're going to basically build out a truck tune with this engine to use it in the Titan, the Frontier, and this Xterra for the high performance versions. So it's not going to have nearly as much power as what the Titan version is going to have, but it's still going to be really solid for a mid-size pickup truck. So expect at least 350 horsepower, if not 400 horsepower, just like what the Z has. But the big news will be the torque. The torque will be at minimum 400 pound-feet, but Nissan's more likely going to shoot for like 450 pound-feet, because that, again, not only would be really solid in a mid-size pickup truck, but that's just going to give you the shove that you'd need to have for a more high-performance off-roader. And I just think that's super exciting. And again, just don't expect that to come out with the release. Expect the, more quote-unquote boring versions with the base powertrain to come out, and then that will come out later once they fully kind of flesh out this whole Warrior brand. Now, in terms of my thoughts on this new Xterra, I think this is an amazing idea, and Nissan needs to get this past the drawing board. They need to release this new Xterra because they would absolutely kill it in today's market. There are so many people that just want a reliable body-on-frame SUV that isn't too complicated. Again, look at the 4Runner. The 4Runner is selling amazingly well, and it's only becoming more and more popular as time goes on. And something else to note is Toyota is going to be redesigning the 4Runner in the very near future, and they're going to be getting rid of its naturally aspirated 4-liter V6 and replacing it with a turbocharged 2.4-liter 4-cylinder. And so Toyota is going to lose their big selling point in the 4Runner, and that is the longevity and reliability. And so this is the perfect opportunity for Nissan to swoop in and have, the reliable body-on-frame SUV within that segment that could sell well over 100,000 units per year once Toyota does their redesign. Now, obviously, people will still buy the 4Runner, but you'll have a big enough group of people that'll go to Nissan because they don't want a turbocharged engine. They want a naturally aspirated engine. Look what's happening with the Nissan Titan. Right now, the Nissan Titan's actually selling really well because Nissan is pulling some buyers from Toyota because people don't want to deal with the Tundra's new 3.5-liter twin-turbo V6. And so, again, they're going to continue to cannibalize sales as long as they keep doing what they are doing. So I want you guys to let me know what you think about the new Xterra, and what would you want to see with the new Xterra? Would you want Nissan to go like all out and build like basically a crazy, desert running version, again the Warrior version, or are you just looking for more of like a general utilitarian vehicle, more like a base model that just looks cool, like the Midnight Edition, or something in between, right? The Pro 4X that is still super capable off-road but isn't like fully dedicated off-roading. It's more like an in-between vehicle where it can do a lot of off-roading, but then it can also still drive really well on-road, and then still has that 3.8 liter V6 that we know is super reliable. Anyways, that's going to sum things up for today's video. I'll see ya.